Gut check.
Generally speaking, I like to wait a little bit longer before I make videos like this because it's worth it to let the dust settle before forming any kind of concrete viewpoint. After all, videos are still coming out, hands-on impressions from the media are still being released, etc. But this is one case where I don't want to wait because I think it's already pretty clear how I feel about this. But let's back up. It is now the Summer Game Fest, our designated replacement for what used to be E3, where publishers and developers dump trailers on us for games they're releasing this Christmas, while also providing glimpses into what they're doing next year and beyond. A few months ago, Sega announced Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, a remaster of Sonic Generations with a brand new Shadow the Hedgehog campaign tacked onto it. Think of it sort of like how Nintendo was doing those Mario and Luigi remakes with an extra minigame on the side, or the Super Mario 3D World remaster on Switch that also came with Bowser's Fury. You get an old game with a fresh coat of paint plus a new little side story. Now at Summer Game Fest, new trailers and even gameplay footage for Sonic Cross Shadow Generations has arrived, and it's not quite what I expected. Sonic Generations largely seems to be the same game from 2011, but now running at 4K 60 frames per second, something that was only possible with the PC version. Or, I guess if you had an Xbox, they unlocked the frame rate on the 360 version there, too. Though they aren't showing it officially yet, I've seen some tweets to suggest they are updating parts of the game. For instance, both Sonics get the drop dash, probably as one of those optional equipable abilities. There will also be a handful of new Chow rescue missions. As for what that means, we don't know, but it seems the birthday party cutscene at the start of the game has been modified to include more Chow as a result. There are also really random little visual changes, like making classic Sonic's quills slightly different lengths compared to the original game. People like to dunk on Sonic fans for caring about this kind of stuff, but if it didn't matter, Sega wouldn't keep doing it in every single game. Like, they're actually making more work for themselves by micromanaging all these tiny little elements of Sonic's appearance, when they could have just left classic Sonic's model alone. Or better yet, reuse the classic Sonic model from Sonic Superstars. Otherwise, it's just weird. All these additions and changes probably also means this will break mod support on PC, at least for a little while. Though, given this also has its own separate store page on Steam, presumably that means it won't change your current Sonic Generations install, and it'll just be its own separate piece of software. Meaning all of your mods will keep working as long as you use the old version of Generations instead of the new one. And hopefully it won't take that long to get mod support up and running on the new one, even though de novo DRM has already been confirmed for day one. Though, actually, now I wonder, if they're adding new mechanics and changing cutscenes, are they going to do anything to the Time Eater boss? I assume they'll probably decrease how often characters call out homing shots, but that boss obviously needs a much bigger makeover that it probably won't get. Like, be honest. Sega's only going to do the bare minimum to this boss, if they do anything at all. But the real interesting thing is that new Shadow the Hedgehog campaign. What it is, and more importantly, what it represents, and how it seems to be accomplishing an impossible task. What do I mean by that? Well, look. I think it's obvious Sega has been getting away from Sonic's edgelord era. The dark themes of Sonic 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog were put behind us for being embarrassing or whatever. Even when they tried to do a serious story with Sonic Forces, the worst thing to happen in that game was Sonic getting captured for a few months. Compared to Sonic the Hedgehog being murdered on screen by Satan, it's pretty softball. High shovel then, because Shadow Generations is digging that grave back up and embracing his dumb alien origin story again. And actually though, like, this game kinda looks good? Like, I'm no big fan of Sonic's edgelord era. I got Shadow the Hedgehog for PS2 for free through something called Goozex, and I still think I paid too much. Shoutouts to all my Goozex heads in the chat if you remember what Goozex is. And I'm just gonna keep saying Goozex if you don't mind. Goozex, Goozex, Goozex. Goozex. But yeah, like, not to spoil a tier list of Sonic games or anything, but to me, Shadow the Hedgehog is definitely the worst 3D Sonic game ever made. Its story is an incomprehensible mess of contradictions, the controls are heavy and sluggish in the worst ways, shooting realistic guns is the single worst idea anyone's ever had for this franchise, and the mission objectives are soul-crushingly tedious. If you are viewing the game on its own terms, it is a disaster. That's not to say people haven't found ways to enjoy the game, but that's not what we're here to talk about. If you somehow enjoy that Shadow the Hedgehog game, more power to you, I guess, and I'm sure you're over the moon for what's happening right now. But that's the thing though, right? I'm not a Shadow the Hedgehog fan. I kind of believe that Shadow probably should have stayed dead at the end of Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic has plenty of rivals already. We did not need someone so dark and brooding and angry. And yet, Shadow Generations is starting to feel like something special. It's the way it so shamelessly embraces Shadow's character and the themes he embodies. I can respect that. I can even enjoy that, I think. I was 14 years old once. I wrote fan fiction about evil Sonic characters. Look at this. This is actual artwork I drew when I was a high school freshman of my evil Sonic OC called Perfect Chaos, spelled with a K, because it's cool. I'm human. I get it. I would even say that's the best way to defeat cringe, actually. This stuff was a part of you, and to some degree, it still is. Hiding from it isn't going to make it go away or make new stuff better. You can't deny it being a part of you, so you should meet it head on. Use it to celebrate how much you've grown. You are who you are, and this was but one step along your journey. I am cringe, but I am all of me. So Shadow Generations giving Shadow big gnarly symbiote demon wings? Hell yeah, brother. The Bio-Lizard getting gross Resident Evil body horror appendages? Sure, let's go. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. But also, just like this level design? I don't know, something about it feels more open than we typically get in 3D Sonic games. Some of the footage even shows what looks to be like legitimate alternate pathways. Ramps to take you to upper levels and stuff like that. That's what I've been asking for in a 3D Sonic game for like years. It's such a simple little thing. Oh yeah, there's also the hub world. Shadow enters his own version of the white space from Sonic Generations, but whereas Sonic's white space was side-scrolling, Shadow's appears to be free-roaming 3D and kinda reminds me of Soliana from Sonic 06. Depending on if they let Ian Flynn out of his cage, I could see this being something that ties Black Doom, the Time Eater, and Solaris from Sonic 06 together into one story. And there's just something about the rest of this footage where they seem a lot more willing to play around with how you traverse levels that looks really experimental and cool. It's telling how often 3D Sonic games feel like they're funneling you down this narrow little highway that having just a little bit more space to move around feels so refreshing, you know? And I say that even after Sonic Frontiers. Like, I don't want to oversell this or anything, but part of me almost wonders if this is even Sonic Team making this. Supposedly it is, if interviews are to be believed, but when you consider how stiff and awkward and clumsy their games are, Shadow Generations feels completely different. It looks dynamic and experimental and confident about its identity. More importantly, it almost looks like a Sonic game that learned from past Sonic games, took what they did right, and actually improved upon them for a change. For Sonic games, that's incredibly rare. Hopefully the rest of the game is great and they can stick the landing. After all, I think it pays to be a little cautious about even the best looking Sonic games. I mean, remember Sonic Origins? I was pretty hyped for that and it ended up being a huge disappointment. So even though I think Shadow Generations looks surprisingly good, there will always be a part of me that's still putting up my guard. I think that's just smart. Also, like, can we just talk about the deep cut of including a Terios skin? Like, that in itself is incredible. If you don't know what all of this means, well, it's probably too long to include in this video, but the Cliff Notes version is that file names on the Sonic Adventure 2 disc suggest that Shadow's original name was Terios, which in Japanese kinda sorta means reflection, because the character is a reflection of Sonic. To go with that name, they've picked a design from the prototype concepts for Shadow. Sega has revealed quite a lot of Shadow concept art over the years, including designs where he's got emo hair or tactical gear, and there's a lot of art where he's got this massive scar across his face and only one eye. So now, that's Terios, I guess. Prototype Shadow. It is like one of the ultimate deep fandom nods they could have put in pretty much anything. It's basically the one and only thing that could overshadow them providing a Dreamcast Sonic skin for Sonic Generations that is just a direct rip of his Sonic Adventure 1 model. Like, what the hell, man? Sega's not supposed to be doing cool stuff like this. Keep those fingers crossed, folks. May the rest of the game look just as good as this summer Game Fest footage. Until then, more videos are on the way, slowly but surely. Stay tuned. Special shoutouts to my Patreon supporters: Edboy, Gadget Feather, Dragon, Juan Pablo, Keith Stack, Mark Bradshaw, Melko Driggs, Sam B, Setsune Wave, Sofox, This Dorky Guy, Alt F4 Games, Dave M, Fiesta, Jason H, L, Minka Cola, Talkie Pup, The Partitioner, Big Knife, Tin Roof, Bluish Yeti 68, Dr. Plant Boss, Jet Set Set, K-Loss, Logan A, Reversal Mushroom, Riley R, Sabrina D, Teko Kami, and Ashley J. Supporting me financially is the best way to ensure future videos keep coming out. You can visit patreon.com/BlazeHedgehog to see your support options. And I'm also getting YouTube memberships ready for those of you who'd rather pledge money right here. I have plans for things for the future, and you're gonna want to see them. See you next video.